All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining this new episode of Campfire. This is going to be quite an episode today. Personally, it kind of blows my mind what we're going to be talking about. It's in the world of AI, but it really is opening the door of, I would say, the next generation of jobs out there. And so I have with me Wyatt Thompson. Wyatt, thank you for joining us. You and I are going to be discussing your company, this opportunity to help train the next generation of AI. And for everyone who's watching us, you probably know already that we are live. We are broadcasting on YouTube, LinkedIn, and Facebook. And you can ask your questions. There's actually a few that have been posted right here already. We'll get to them. Um, if you're joining, if you're watching, look for the message box, type in your question, and we'll get to those in a few minutes. Questions for Wyatt and or questions for me, obviously. And then we have Krista here. Hey, Krista, thanks for joining. All right, so now that we have the introductions for the stream, can you introduce yourself, Wyatt? What do you do?
Sure.
Who you work for?
Well, Ludo, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to present to the Nucamp world today. My name's Wyatt Thompson. I'm currently sitting here in beautiful Berkeley, California, and I'm a technical program manager at Scale AI. And I think what that typically means, technical program manager isn't that specific, but I spend most of my time running large projects where we create training data targeted at building the world's most advanced AI models, particularly as far as improving the ability to write good software and write, we call it creating, the world's next coding model.
Awesome. And we're going to say hi to a few folks here that are joining. Sibaisef. Hello, hello. T Family SF, San Francisco, TF. Yeah, something like that, I think. Victoria is here. Hello. Irene is here. Hey, thanks for joining, Irene. And then Laura as well. So tell us a little bit about the company you're working for, Wyatt, and what's really special about that company? What does it do?
Yeah, absolutely. So Scale AI creates training data, which is often called like annotated data that's then used to train kind of the most state-of-the-art models. And what we do in particular, what's made us so successful is we've been able to scale that process up to kind of allow people around the world to work together to create these training data sets. Because what we see makes the biggest difference in model performance is having a really large size of, truly kind of ground truth data, as we say it, of how you'd like the model to perform. And so we've built the tooling that allows us to do this at a really broad scale and control quality in that training data set. And we've just been able to be an industry leader in the creation of this training data. Now we're branching into many other things, but my focus is on, creating the data that goes into the next GPT-5.
For coding. So your specialty is definitely next generation AI and coding.
Yes, that's exactly right. I'm focused on kind of all types of coding, whether it's writing executable code that will allow you to like visualize plots, or whether it's helping to deploy software to a certain kind of endpoint. We do it all, but it's all within the world of any type of software engineering falls into my team.
Gotcha. We have tons of people joining. Hi, Michael. Great to have you here. Leah is here. Bindia, Jennifer, Amando. And then people now saying from where they're from. David, Laura, Anuja is here. Amando. And folks, if you have any questions for Wyatt, please ask them in the chat. I'm showing Scale AI's website right now. And what's really amazing already is to see the scale and the breadth of customers that the company has. Obviously, the most renowned, model provider or model developers, Anthropic, Microsoft, Meta. But then you're seeing Toyota as well, Fox, Accenture, Defense Department. This is really, I mean, I know for in your field, I'm guessing this may just be OpenAI or Microsoft, but really the job and the work of Scale AI really spans a ton of different industries and customers that you would not think immediately they are creating their own model, but they are, right?
Yeah, that's a really good point. So we do a few different things. We've recently launched kind of our enterprise division that creates models for companies. So that's what we're doing for certain of the clients you see on the list. For other companies, we partner with them to kind of create the data engine, like we often say, to create model improvements with improved data. And I think anything that touches AI, we're getting involved in as the space grows and grows. We're kind of expanding our product line. But I think the focus and the exciting part for me is getting to bring in so many software developers to work together to kind of train the next generation of model.
Yeah. So let's actually dive into that, and we'll get back to your company in a few minutes. But let's dive exactly into what are you looking for? What is the opportunities for Nucamp graduates out there? And I know we have a few questions, like one from Sid here, that really is in that. Well, what kind of candidates are you looking for, and what kind of skill sets do you need? So, can you give us an idea of really what's how can the Nucamp graduate community help?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad you asked that, Sid. So anybody who, I think first I'd like to say the differentiator for most people that I see, for people who are really successful in the role, is enthusiasm about the mission of accelerating the development of AI applications. That's the
I'm
biggest
gonna bring
differentiator.
I'm gonna
Um,
bring that slide as well. Maybe that's gonna help.
Yeah. But I will say, in particular, we're looking for people with experience in software development. Typically, this is around 1 to 2 years of experience. And we need help on all coding languages, whether you're a front end coder, a back end coder, a data scientist, mobile development. Models need to be trained in all of these. And so we have projects that span, all coding specializations. It is helpful to have coding experience to be on this team. I will say, if you do not have coding experience, there's likely still work for you at scale. But today I'm here to kind of talk more about the coding opportunity.
And so the job itself, it's actually something we've never experienced before. Like that didn't exist before. Can you describe exactly what it's not a regular developer job where you're building a piece of software. What is it exactly?
Yeah, that's a great question. So you're building the training data that goes into the model itself, and the training data is code. So there's a couple different ways to think about training models. I like to separate them into, I think, two of the most prominent methods used to date. One is reinforcement learning with human feedback. And so that
Yeah.
would be if we take a model and we ask it the same prompt multiple times, and we'll get different responses because these models are using a probabilistic distribution to arrive at the output. So you'll get a few different responses, and then we choose the response that is the most accurate or the most correct according to certain criteria. For code, this typically means the code runs, the code is well commented, the code answers the prompt, and most importantly, or I guess additionally, that the code uses modern best practices,
Gotcha.
or modern solutions. And so you would choose the output that most adheres to that criteria. And then here's where it gets really cool.
And Wyatt, I'm showing something right now on the screen as well. That's what we're talking about, right? That's
So this would
providing
be
the response. What is the right one, and really kind of annotating the response that is shown here.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So this would be one of a couple model responses shown. And we would be asking a series of questions to arrive at which one is better. So it's going to be, does the code execute? Does the code provide the right output? But what I think is pretty magical is we can feed this information back into the model in such a way that we change the weights of the neural network
Yeah.
to make future output closer to the option that's selected. But I think one thing that's really interesting to think about is just how big this data set needs to be in order to drive model performance. So in reinforcement learning with human feedback, you probably need around, I think I see a lot of data sets around like 50,000 examples in
Wow.
order to like make one kind of, in order to have a meaningful impact on the model performance. Another way that we work and another way that we create training data is through what we call supervised fine-tuning data. In this, you're actually demonstrating to the model how you would want to reply. So in this example, the model response may not be there, and we may be presented with the prompt, can you please perform some exploratory data analysis on C_year with plots? And then we would need to actually write the code for it,
Ooh, I see.
perform that data analysis. And then we feed that to the model, and that makes the model, more ready to perform data analysis on the next data set.
Is that last example that you've provided what is known in the industry as synthetic data, where we create the actual original data to train on? Is that it?
That's a good question. So synthetic data is more when a model is creating the response itself as opposed to a person.
Okay.
So if you had a very low performant model, for example, you could ask something like ChatGPT to give you 1,000 prompts that are coding prompts. And then you could feed those prompts to ChatGPT and get the responses. And then you could use that as training data. That would be an example of synthetic training data. We see that becoming quite popular for the early phases of training, but you reach a pretty fundamental problem of information theory pretty quick, which is, I like to phrase this, you can only learn as much as the teacher has to share, right? You can only get as good as the model that's generating the synthetic data. And so we find ourselves not using very much synthetic data because we're trying to push the envelope beyond what is out there today.
Okay, I gotcha. And so the big question is, and that's, and we'll get into how you apply and everything, but you blew my mind a few days ago when I asked you the question, how many people are you looking for? And so can you share, like, how many people does the AI industry need right now in terms of people in that role that are annotating and really improving the models?
Yeah, so I think to start with, I'm looking to grow my team by about 1,000 more people, but I know that's just the start, right? Like this is going to continue to grow and grow. I think my team thinks at least through 2025, and we're going to see as many as 10,000 more like teammates come on board to help train this next generation of AI models.
That's huge. And so we were discussing earlier, right before we went live, and you said something that's quite profound in terms of what we're seeing happening with AI in the industry, and especially that job. It's a brand new role. Can you share with us your thoughts around the job that you're describing right now?
Yeah, of course. I think this is a totally new earning opportunity for people who have software development experience. Anybody who's worked with ChatGPT knows that, particularly in software development, knows that things that were totally out of reach are now doable within just an afternoon, right? I myself have built web apps for the first time using GPT-4, and in just a day or two, you can spin up a full prototype all by yourself. And I think to see that happening is really inspiring. And I think we're going to see more and more that people are using these tools for developing software. And as that continues to happen and these models get better, I think there's going to be more of a drive to start working on the teams that are training the models, because this category of work is just going to continue to grow.
That's right. And as we saw earlier, the companies needing help are not just the big companies, Microsoft, OpenAI, Google. More and more companies in more and more industries are going to build their own models and are going to need that new kind of expertise and people who are just there to help reinforce the training, right? So it's a brand new job category in a way. Just like, after software engineering appeared, you had QA appear. But now we have prompt engineers and we have, how do we call actually those, like, what's the name of that role? What's the role?
That's a great question. So I think until yesterday, the name of the role was coding QA, but I
Yeah.
think we're going to change it because it's a little confusing to
Yeah.
software engineering AI training.
There you go.
I think the way I would describe the role. And then I want to answer just one question in the chat that feels relevant.
Yeah.
Brandon, the way to apply for this opportunity is through a link that we'll share with the Nucamp community and everybody watching the video. And that's the path in. You're not able to apply through the website.
Yeah. And we're going to share it. And that's actually, let's bring that other question from Rhonda. Will I be a candidate if I've never coded?
That's a great question, Rhonda. I think the hard answer is probably not today, but I would encourage you to start coding. And I have full faith that we're going to continue to need people in this line of work for the next few years. So right now, this opportunity is targeted at people with coding experience.
And I think you have, we went over that, but you're looking for 1 or 2 years of experience, right? Can you tell us what makes a good software engineer training? How do you call it? Software engineer?
Yeah, software engineer AI training.
AI training. So what makes a good software engineer AI trainer?
Yeah, I think, like I was saying before, the biggest differentiator that I see is enthusiasm for this, for this future and accelerating the development of AI. In the work, you're going to get to see a lot of kind of prototype models. You're going to get to see a lot of under the hood of how these models work. And I think that's so exciting. And so having enthusiasm for this the development of the AI space is the biggest differentiator. But to answer your question more directly, a broad kind of exposure to practical challenges that software engineers face, right? You think about what we learn about in CS majors, schools of kind of algorithm design. That's not exactly the challenges that most people face when building a product, right? It's usually more oh my gosh, how on earth do I get these environment variables to work with this API key? Oh my gosh, how do I connect, to this various endpoint? And these are a lot of practical challenges that we're needing to teach models how to solve, and also just building full applications end to end. So I think real building experience is really helpful. Exposure to multiple kind of programming languages, but also I think communication and collaboration. It's really hard to train these models, and it's really hard to build, data sets at a large scale with distributed teams. So those that are able to, lift each other up, help inspire each other to, create the best training data possible, that's who's going to be really successful. I do want to add, while we're here, a couple of the cool benefits. So what we see is, first, you can work whenever you want, and there's no cap to your earning potential. So I see some people really working 60, 70 hours a week. This is their full-time job, and they're able to, make an incredible amount of money doing so. And I think that's really inspiring to see that they're not kind of blocked by any red tape of a traditional company. The second piece is how flexible it is. I see a lot of people who put in a few hours after their typical work, and it allows them, extra earning potential after the 9 to 5, or people who kind of travel and live kind of maybe a less stayed put lifestyle, find a lot of advantage out of, kind of the flexibility that's offered by the platform. And just to answer a couple more.
Yeah, that's Brandon's question, if you don't mind. And we have on the screen here the earnings, but you also have something about the location. And there's a question here around location. What are there constraints in terms of where people need to live to, even though it's remote, to be able to apply?
Yeah, that's a great question. So there are, generally speaking, people can be from anywhere in the world. We have a lot of representation in Argentina, in Mexico, in India, in Peru, Colombia, Ecuador, uh, and I think those are our major hubs. But generally, people can be from around the world. And I think this question kind of alludes to a deeper question, which is kind of the difference between Scale AI and the platform that we collect the data on, which is called Remote Task.
Yeah.
So Remote Task is a platform owned by Scale where we collect all the data. And I think due to a lot of the legal challenges of having a globally distributed workforce, they're two distinct entities, but are very related. And so that's why you'll see some kind of differences. So what I'm promoting today, and the role that I'm really trying to fill, is for the software engineer, AI trainers on the Remote Task platform. And more specifically, I'm really trying to grow what I think of as the SWAT team, or the truly the experts that will work on our most high priority projects and will review data before it goes into the model. So people can be from anywhere in the world and work on the Remote Task platform. And there's an incredible amount of flexibility and earning opportunity. So I'm just really excited to share this opportunity today.
Awesome. So some questions about, I live in New York. Can someone apply and get a job through Remote Task while living in New York?
Oh, absolutely. New York, anywhere in the U.S., Canada, Mexico is fine. And then, like I said, I listed most countries in South America. There are a few that have challenges, but I think those countries typically are ones that are economically sanctioned by the U.S.
Okay, awesome. Let's another question here from Brandon. Maybe Brandon, you've actually tried to apply in the past, and maybe an opportunity for you to describe the onboarding experience.
Yeah, that's a great question. So,
and the question is, if you do not pass through the initial testing application, are you able to reapply later?
Yeah, the answer is yes. We would love to see you reapply. In particular, what I will do is everybody who applies through the sign up link, we will kind of review resumes, make sure that you have a year of coding experience, and then we'll schedule a live interview, which is something that we weren't doing before, just because it's difficult to do at scale.
Yeah.
However, I found that interview is really important. So we'll do a live interview, and then if you pass the live interview, we'll have an onboarding session in the next 48 hours. We'll introduce you to the team and kind of get you started on your first projects.
Okay, so anyone who's passing the interview gets an opportunity to work with Remote Task.
That's correct. Yes.
Wow. Okay, that's awesome. I have to ask, how many applications are you getting? Because this is an exciting position with all the perks you would expect. How many people are you seeing through? And then, do you have turnovers as well? Are you also finding that some people maybe are not performing well enough, or are not putting enough hours? What's the ideal candidate from that standpoint for you?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So to answer how many people are applying per day, I think on the order of thousands is about right. And then we see on the order of hundreds who come in each day. What makes somebody turn over? Typically, the work that we're doing is very perfection oriented, right? We're building, we have to create very crisp training data that goes into the model. And so what we see happen sometimes is people who are maybe a little less kind of perfection oriented and really enjoy the rough cut of the first part of coding. This is not going to be as good of a fit for you. Yeah. This is for those who really pride themselves on every variable is named exactly right, and every piece of code is created with best practices. It's less about, we don't want to teach the models to duct tape together a bunch of functions that barely work only in the right use case. it's got to be correct programming practices.
So be wary about the missing semicolon in what you feed the model, right? All of that.
Oh yeah, and I think there's here in a minute, I'd love to show you kind of an example of how we think about, or how the model kind of talks to itself to arrive at a conclusion.
Yeah.
And how like having code that doesn't run can really interrupt that, which I think can be really fun. And
let's have you do the demo. I want to take that question from your love because I know she posted before we started the stream. And so, I mean, you have thousands of applications. People are expected to go through a first test to then get into a potential interview. With that level of volume, I'm guessing you have people kind of waiting. What would you like to tell your love who's like, waiting to hear?
Yeah, your love, I'm sorry that you've experienced the wait with Zendesk. This is a little bit of a different position than the one that you probably applied to straight through remote tasks. So like I said, I'm trying to recruit like the SWAT team of coders. So we are following up with everybody and doing a full interview, typically within 1 week of application. And then there's a 48-hour period, and those who pass the interview are here for live onboarding. So your love, I'd encourage you to apply again through the link that will be provided today. And I can assure you, it's my team running it, and we will get you through the process.
Well, and that being said, I think we're almost halfway into this stream, so I feel good about sharing the link right now. So, folks who have been with us, listening to us, and are like, hey, give me the link so that we can start to apply. Here it is. All right, follow this link, and you'll be invited to apply to the position that Wyatt is hiring for. With that said, okay, let's see if there is one last question before you demo ChatGPT and the tool itself. Why I need full stack development if AI can do everything? So, I mean, the $1 million question, right? They're going to train the AI model to be the best software engineers we've ever seen. What happens to those software engineers after that?
Well, it's going to take some time for us to get to the AI being able to do everything. And there will still be a lot of edge cases and specifics that will require software engineers. So I don't think that the role of software engineers are going anywhere. I think this is another opportunity to use your software engineering talent in a kind of a new way, which is to train these AI models to get better and better, so that one day we look at that question and we think, who knows? Maybe the AI model will be able to do everything, but it can't today, and it won't be able to in the very near future. And so we need to keep training the model. And I think kind of from a more Terminator perspective, we'd always rather be on the model's good side, right? We'd always rather be the one who taught it things.
Are you saying that the model will remember the people who trained him or it?
I think we haven't run the tests on that one, so we'll have to see. So they definitely will remember all of the training data that was given.
Yeah, that's right. And my 2 cents on this one is, we actually, with that conversation, with you hiring for that role, we're starting the profession evolve. We have prompt engineers now, which really is it kind of started as a meme in a sense, but it's a real thing. It's a real deal. Really knowing how to prompt the AI makes a big difference. And then this new role that didn't exist, I would say maybe a year or 2 years ago, this is really us, the profession, the industry, the world, just adjusting to the new reality of AI and creating new opportunities for humans. So I think, it's not everything is lost. All right, so I think we tested it. You are able to share your screen. Do you wanna do that now?
Yeah, let's do it. I want to backpedal and say, I don't mean to be alarmist for people training in software engineering. Software engineering is here to stay. There's going to be many like edge cases forever that AI can't do well. What it will be able to do is create full applications for you really quickly. So I think what we're going to see is just increased acceleration in the tech space as people can prototype in an afternoon and test products in a week. I think we're going to get a lot more products, and we're going to see a lot more, innovation, just as it's accelerated by this awesome tool of AI. Yeah. That being said, I want to transition into sharing a story from our CEO, Alexander Wang, the other day that I thought was really moving. And then I'll demonstrate kind of an example of that story using ChatGPT. So
let's talk about your CEO then. One second. Oh, and someone asked about the link. So the link, from what I'm seeing here, was published successfully to YouTube and Facebook, but apparently maybe not on LinkedIn. So if you're watching us on LinkedIn, scoop over to YouTube or Facebook, and you'll get the link there. I receive a check mark for YouTube and Facebook, but not LinkedIn. And quickly, because your CEO is a genius. Let's just say it, right? 27 years old, Forbes 30 under 30, and dropped out of MIT to create Scale AI, and with a GPA of 5.0. I don't think even Matt Zuckerberg got a 5.0 at Harvard. And so very inspiring person, well connected. You can go to YouTube and Scale AI channel. You'll see interviews between Alexander and Greg Brockman from OpenAI, with Sam Altman from OpenAI, with Eric Schmidt. Very interesting stuff there. So, and Alexander also has a Twitter account or X account where he talks about his passion for math and how math will set you free. All right. With that said, Wyatt, please go ahead, share your screen.
Awesome. Let's see if this works. I think so. I have way too many tabs open. This is what I'm learning right now. Let me try one more time. Okay. So I think while I'm getting this up, I'll go ahead and start sharing the story. Okay. And let's see here. Oopsie doopsie. Okay. Oh, got it. I'm just going to share the whole screen. There we go. Can you see my screen?
Yes. Show it on stream. There we go. You got it.
Fantastic. So earlier in a meeting, Alex was asked the question, what do you think training data creation will look like 5 years from now? And he answered in a really interesting way, which was to say, you can categorize most training data into two groups. One is demonstrating to the model what we want it to do. So that would be kind of creating the training data where we give it a prompt and we give it a response, and we say, when given a prompt of this type, we expect to see a response of this type. Mm-hmm. That's one method. Another method is supervising the model as it thinks through things and kind of correcting it as it goes along that path. So that would be closer to the reinforcement learning through human feedback style that I mentioned before. But I want to show, and I think to conclude the anecdote he said, SFT data or demonstrating is really good for getting to about human level. But if you want to get past human level, you really have to start using more supervision of the models, like internal thinking. And so we're seeing more and more of the work shift to watching these models think through problems. And I want to kind of demonstrate how the models have improved over the last few years.
Oh, cool.
And also, what kind of goes wrong.
Yeah.
So first, you'll remember early when LLM started, there were a lot of memes of like, this thing can't be that smart. And if you'd ask it 4 + 4, it might say the answer is 9. Yeah. I'm sure the Nucamp audience knows this, but the reason that would happen is because it's not actually calculating, it's predicting what the answer to that question is, which is not how you do math, right? So now, today, models perform way differently. So they actually will, when you feed it a prompt, there will be a full kind of line of reasoning that the model goes through before giving you the final output. And there are certain ways that we can see this in real time.
Oh, really?
So let's say, I think a good example is to say,
and just want to say, there's a few questions about people who've tried to apply and everything. We'll get to that right after you finish your demo. So I've seen Stacy, BP7891, Chimo FD, you have questions on applying on a remote task. We'll get to that in a sec. Random walk with length 10 in 4 directions. Wow.
So let's say, we're going to ask it to kind of perform this calculation for us. And what's interesting is pretty quickly, if I'm right, we're going to see this, it shift into analyzing, right?
Yeah.
So now this analyzing tool has popped up. And what the model has actually done is it's asked itself, were I to answer this question, would it be helpful for me to run code? And that's a full model on its own that is answering that question. Like, should we run code to answer this? And then it asks itself again, what code would we run to answer this?
Mm-hmm.
And then it runs the code, and it finally asks itself again, hey, can you demonstrate a random walk with length 10 in 4 directions, given that this code should answer the question, and the output of this code will be the answer to that question. So then finally, it'll give us the output, and we can see here it had error analyzing. My hypothesis is that the code there didn't execute because the model tried to write its own code,
yeah,
it executed, and it didn't work. So this is a great reason that we need everybody here to help us train the model to write better code. But let's see if its second attempt works. If it doesn't, we'll give it a little bit easier question.
And I've just posted the link again. Stacy just asked, where is the link to apply? I'm confused. The link should be there. So I haven't checked if it shows up on YouTube, but it should show up. Let me actually try that real quick on my phone if it's there.
All right, let's try a different one.
But yeah, the link is there, right?
What's interesting is this is the code it tried to run, and for some reason this code didn't run, which is okay.
And it's a Python code, yeah. So can you? I think everyone should be able to see the link. It's kind of on my phone. It's kind of weirdly formatted. Maybe it's not. Oh no, but it is correct. It seems to be correct. Yeah. So you should have the code on. Okay, it does show up on YouTube, and the link works. Perfect. All right. So it didn't work, or did it work? No, it did not. Right?
Yeah. It did not work because the code didn't run. But let's try a little bit simpler one. So we'll ask it, what is the 3,000th prime number? So now,
and you know what you've just experienced here is what also tells me that we're still quite far away from AI taking over everything software engineering.
Oh, without a doubt, we're a long way.
It's like you can worry because it's already very powerful, but when it comes to chaining complex actions that are supposed to be deterministic, and that's really hard for AI to be deterministic. It's not there. It's really not there, right? And this is just like maybe 3 calls, chain calls here that you've described, and it's tough. So, all right, I hope you're going to be able to make it work.
We'll see if it can get the 3,000th prime number, but
yeah,
it's having trouble running its code. But this code is a little bit. Oh, you know what's fascinating? I'll just go ahead and switch over. So this is it checking for the 3,000th prime number. Yeah. This is obviously not the best way to do it. Another way that you can do this, I've asked it yesterday. The 1,000th prime number is 7,919, and the code to get it is pretty short, right? Just prime 1,000. So in this instance, the model came up with the wrong code to execute, and it probably timed out on its execution time on the back end. But what I wanted to demonstrate is the way that the model has to talk to itself to arrive at this conclusion. And we're seeing that more and more is that the innovation, both in training the models and also how the model follows its line of reasoning. I think we won't have time to look at this today, but one great example of this is in the Gemini demo. If anybody watched kind of when Google dropped the Gemini model, they do a really cool demo where in order for the model to provide you kind of the response, the model actually starts with a sentence that it thinks would be an appropriate response. Then it turns that into a PRD or a product requirements document. And then it asks itself what code fulfills that product's requirements document. And then it provides the full kind of web application that adheres to the specifications given in the PRD. So it's this long line of like refining and refining the result until making it executable code and giving it at the end.
Is
So
that the concept of train of thoughts? When people talk about train of thoughts for an AI, is that what you've just described?
yeah, I think so. I think of it as kind of as a train of thought, or also kind of like distilling it into steps. There's, I think, a really great paper about, for example, with like math training data, you have a lot more performance in the model driven by like breaking down the solution into a series of steps as opposed to just giving it the answer. And I think that same philosophy applies to just when the model's thinking through any response. So you're going to see more and more kind of models having their own internal dialogue that the user doesn't get to see until the final output.
Hey, so let's go back to the questions here. I'm starting back at Stephen Garber, who's asking that you advertise for education in other areas like the science. Does that outweigh the lack of coding skills? My understanding of that question is, hey, are you still interested, you yourself, Wyatt, in someone applying to your position who has, knowledge of science, but not so much coding skills? And then I will expand that. Is there any other position for Scale AI where coding is not the skill that people look for, but other skills, other education areas?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that. So, Stephen, the answer is I'm looking for coders. But that being said, I'm like one of many at Scale who are working to improve models. And there's work for experts in many domains. There's work for kind of generalists, of people who are just excited about AI and want to get involved in creating the training data. There's a lot of different opportunities. I'd encourage you to look at the remote task community, or I think there's another link that we can share with the Nucamp team that may be helpful for those interested in other positions in software engineering.
Yeah, that'll be great. Because what you said earlier, you can't really apply to remote task without being provided an invite, right? Is that correct?
You can apply online, definitely. But for the opportunity that I'm trying to recruit people for today, applying through the link will be much faster because I've made this special link, and it's, it goes to being on Wyatt's team.
Okay.
So it's a lot faster than applying through the website.
Makes sense. But for the other positions, okay, and we'll communicate the link. You and I will talk later and with the team. There's another question. I think you kind of answered that, but I've seen it a few times already. Can we apply from Africa? And then I saw someone asking specifically from Nairobi, Kenya.
That's a good question. Today, we cannot accept candidates from Kenya.
Okay.
We would like to in the future, but unfortunately, we cannot today.
I see. Anywhere else from Africa or not?
I'm going to have to pull up the list to take a look. But I know South Africa, I think, should be okay.
Okay.
But let me get the list, and I'll have to follow up with you after the call.
Okay. I think I saw somewhere someone saying, I started the test, did not finish. Should I complete it? And I was kind of confused by the question, but there you go. From Stacy. I have applied on remote task and I'm halfway through the computer science exam. Should I finish it?
That's a great question, Stacy. I would encourage you to apply through the link here, and then we'll take you through the interview process as opposed to the computer science exam.
Okay, because so the test associated with the link that you've shared is not the computer science exam. It's another test. It's another exam.
Yeah, so I think this kind of gets into the history of remote task and Scale a little bit. So, like I said, we're trying to grow this team at a breakneck pace, right? Like we need thousands and thousands of people. And so what we do is you can apply through the remote task platform, and you'll be taken through kind of an automated screening where you can take an exam, and then you'll be put straight into a production worker team. What I'm trying to grow here today is a little bit of a smaller group that works only on our high priority projects, and kind of you have a manager and more of the team structure. So I would encourage anybody interested who's already applied to apply through the link again.
Yeah.
And we'll take you through the interview flow to kind of become a software engineer, AI trainer on the QA coding team.
That makes super sense. Another question, clarification as to who would they work for, Remote Task or Scale AI?
That's a good question. So technically, the work is with Remote Task. Yeah, so that would be the contract would be in the terms of service with Remote Task, and Remote Task is very associated with Scale AI.
Yeah, and it's a freelance. It's a 1099 position, right? It's not an employee position.
That's correct.
Yeah. And I don't know if you know anything about that, but someone's saying it blocks UK accounts. Does that ring a bell?
That does ring a bell.
Yeah.
Yes, let me follow up with you.
Okay. And I'll follow up. We'll follow up on Discord for our graduates. Okay.
I think what we can do is, for those who have blocked signups, there are kind of various like technical difficulties. I think that's a UK data privacy challenge.
I see.
So what we'll do is, if you share your email with Nucamp and that you're interested in this opportunity, I will reach out directly and we'll get you into the interview process.
Great. There was a question about, hey, is this recorded? Yes, it is. It's going to be available on YouTube right after that. Next question that we haven't spent too much time on, but the pay is really good. I mean, the range is great, like from 22. I mean, 22 is okay. Not bad, but okay. 55 is obviously really good. Can you explain, I mean, how do you know where you're going to land? What are the criteria for anyone to be either at the low end or the high end of the spectrum?
Yeah, that's a great question. So it depends on your performance in the interview. In the interview, we'll give you a series of coding questions that are typically done in Python, but can be adapted to your preferred language. The first interview question will qualify you to earn the $22 an hour rate. And then if you answer the second interview question correct, it may be the second and the third, you then are eligible for the $55 an hour rate.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
That's right. It has nothing to do with your past education or any credential. It's just how well are you at this job, pretty much.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So if you come through with 1 to 2 years of experience, which I think is a requirement, I think to make it to the interview stage, then your performance in the interview is what determines your pay.
That's awesome. That's great. One additional questions, something about, the phone number is already in place, probably something to deal with support. Do you want to answer it maybe? That one.
Is this an earn while you learn? That's pretty interesting. You definitely will learn a lot. I think I like Krista's point. It is kind of closer to Leak Code. You will be solving kind of coding challenges with the kind of difference, whereas Leak Code is very abstract and tricky. These coding challenges will be very particular. I have a malformed CSV that has some like cells that have tabs. How can I clean it up and then open it in Python and understand the data? Would be kind of an example of a question, which is in the format of a code block like Leak Code, but a little bit different. A little bit different.
Gotcha. And is it timed? Like, or do people have the luxury of time to think about the answers and provide the best answer, or is it?
Yeah, that's a great question. So it depends on the project. Generally speaking, I think the range is, if you're doing an evaluation of like which response is better, you typically have between 30 minutes and an hour and a half to like decide which is best. We want to give you plenty of time to run the code, test the code thoroughly and really give a thoughtful answer. And then for longer ones, we have projects that are, for example, build a full application by interacting with the chatbot.
Yeah.
And for those, you may have as long as 6 hours to a few days to complete those projects.
Great. So, question from Sophia. I think we sort of answered that one, but it's interesting. Like, do you at all consider, proven expertise via certifications, or anything like that, blockchain or any certification, does that make any difference to you hiring someone or the pay you're going to provide to that person?
Um, yeah, I mean that's a great question. So certifications will definitely help establish that 1 year to 2 years of experience minimum to like
Yeah.
make it to the interview stage.
Yeah. Yeah.
But then, like we stated earlier, the performance in the interview is what will determine the pay rate.
Yeah.
Uh,
Cool. And Sophia has a strong opinion around $22 being not good at all. If I That's 47,000 annual, which is very low end for developer. But for me, I would say, hey, your performance is going to decide how much you're being paid. And if you're a beginner, if you just made it to 1 year, you're just starting, it's an exciting job. Uh, it's remote, it's from home, and you can do it as much as you want. So yeah, you may want to still be looking for something else, but it's not bad at all as a side gig. I would say then, right? It's not gonna, especially if you live like you in California or near Seattle. It's not gonna be probably enough, but it's a great side gig for a beginner.
I think that's really fair. And then I'd also add that, Sophia, you have to think kind of from the global perspective. Like $22 an hour can be really powerful in a lot of places. And I think for folks where the U.S. dollar has an outsized purchasing power in their home country, $22 an hour can be an incredibly competitive rate.
Totally. I mean, going back to those conversations and those questions around, hey, is it lead code? Is it HackerRank? Are there any theoretical questions around data structures, or is it very much, yeah, you have to produce code at the end?
Yeah, so I think there is like I said, models are getting better at everything, right? So this is including theoretical computer science questions. Mm-hmm. We have a smaller team that works on kind of CS theory training. There are questions based on data structures all the time. One of my biggest projects right now is working on kind of data analysis that requires like practical knowledge of data structures. So I think there'd be two separate teams. If you were interested in like, when is it most appropriate to use a linked list? That would be more on the expert CS theory train. But if you were interested in, how do I build a data structure to store some user interactions in my web app, that would be, work that I think you will see all over the place once you're on the platform.
All right. Okay. So, hey, if you want to continue to ask your questions to Wyatt and myself, please feel free to do so. Let's look at anything that we haven't covered yet, Wyatt. So, and you very nicely offered this slide deck for our conversation. I think we talked about a lot of what Scale AI is, the relationship with remote task, who you're looking for, which languages, the level of experience. You mentioned in this slide Outlier. Like, should people know about Outlier? Well, actually, oh wow,
that's right. I didn't want to distract anybody. Outlier is another platform that's been created by Scale to help create this data collection. Everything will be moving towards Outlier in the near future.
I see.
The reason that I promote remote tasks instead is that for right now, it's a lot easier to onboard kind of a more global workforce onto remote tasks. But Outlier is a platform we've developed to also kind of collect data, but has a much better user experience. There's better support channels. There's community pages. So if you apply through the link and you join, you'll find yourself starting on remote task and very quickly migrated to the Outlier platform.
Gotcha. Stacy is asking, so you're going to have a lot of people applying through the link. If they have any issue, what's the best way to receive support? Should they try to reach out to you? What would you recommend here?
Well, my home phone number is 32. I'm just kidding. But I will give my email to you, and then we can share it with anybody who has trouble.
We can share it with our graduates in Discord. That's brilliant.
Okay. That'd be fine.
All right. So logistics, we've talked about. The benefits, we've talked about as well. Oh, there's going to be a Slack workspace. Okay, so all the people, everyone who's working in your organization and on this project are going to be collaborating all together.
Oh
It's
yeah, I think that's one of the big developments that we've seen in this space. So early AI training was all about self-driving cars, right? And so for self-driving cars to kind of learn how to navigate the road, there was a real need for them to be able to do object identification in both kind of 2 dimensions and 3 dimensions. And so that work was very necessary and very hard, but was less complicated. It's like identify the pedestrian, identify the stoplight. What we've seen since then is, particularly for coding challenges, people need to work together because it's not always easy to like find the solution to a problem. And so we have a huge team of expert coders whose job it is to train people to be there to answer questions when you run into them. And so we work in Slack together all day. And then we also have Zoom rooms where everybody's hanging out and kind of working at the same time. And we really foster that community experience.
That sounds awesome. Okay, great. The onboarding process, we talked about it, but we didn't. I mean, sign up, remote task and Slack, ID verification. Do you do any background checks?
Yes, I think this slide is a little bit out of date. I think this would be after the interview. So what I wanted to do is make sure everybody has an opportunity to learn about what we're doing, talk to somebody one-on-one, ask questions first. So we have the interview process, and then once you've passed the interview, we'll send you a link to sign up for remote task, and then we'll have a live onboarding, where you'll meet your team. But as part of the process, you will have to go through ID verification. So this is where it's just typical persona. If you've ever rented a Lime scooter, it's the same process as that.
Okay.
And then the screening has been replaced by the interview.
I see. Yeah. There's a bunch of examples here that we didn't go through, but you mentioned as well. How much? There was one question here. What's the best way to prepare for the interview? Python, JavaScript, other languages?
Python would be the best preparation for the interview. And then here, I'll give you, if you've watched to the end of this webinar, I'll go ahead and give you like some tips that will make the interview a lot easier for you.
Oh, that's good. That's good. Well,
So
you want to go there? Yeah, go for it now.
yeah. So here's one coding problem that if you prepare for. So using the package pandas in Python, create a list, add things to the list, remove things from the list, and then write an algorithm to reverse the order of that list. If you can do that live, you'll be in a really good spot. Another coding challenge. This one, I won't exactly give away the exact interview question for the second one, but here's a similar problem that if you can solve, you'll be in a really good spot. Given an arbitrary string of any length, write a function that will find the largest substring of repeated same characters. So if you have AAA, BBB, identify the longest consecutive string and where that happens in the string. So a function that can take an arbitrary string, find the longest kind of streak, as I'd call it, and identify how long it is, what character it is, and where it is in the substring. And if you can do those two things live, you're going to be in a really good spot for this interview.
That's good. It doesn't seem too challenging, right? It's not like hey, if you know how to develop a Windows operating system, then you're good. It's very much, if you know those standard, practical things, you're good. So it's actually great.
Yeah, and I think it's a little bit different than a lot of other software engineering work. When I onboard new people, I say the most important thing to do is to test the code. Just all over the place, because the models are really good at hallucinating code that looks like it runs, but it doesn't run. And so if we can just start out with, helping these models have executable code in all situations, that's going to really help drive the next generation. Granted, if you can build a full Windows operating system,
You'll be fine.
yeah.
Yeah, although I didn't see C++ being really appreciated in the skills that you were looking for.
We have some C++. I think
Yeah.
Python's really helpful for scripting, and I think a lot of like one-off use cases. So Python's definitely I think the biggest need in the immediate term. That being said, a couple other skills that would be really outsized value would be mobile development,
Mm-hmm.
really helpful. C++ for backend development is really useful, and I think but really becoming an expert in any of those specializations, you're going to have rapid advancement because real quickly, you'll be the guy we send people to ask questions to.
Nice. One last thing. So, Curtis, the slide actually is already in our Discord for graduates. You go to the job opportunities channel, and you'll find the link. It was posted there along with a link to the deck, as long as a link to apply was posted earlier this week. We gave our graduates a little bit of an exclusive preview and advantage. Wanted to do that before we went live today. Wyatt, it was amazing as I thought. This is so exciting, scary, like any groundbreaking innovation, but also super exciting to see how much everyone has actually a part to play in building the future. Right? It's not just a small group of scientists. It's also an army of experts that can come together collaboratively and craft the best AI we can create.
Oh, it's truly amazing, and to see how fast it's moved is inspiring. I feel blessed every day to get to work on these projects and with such a big community. I think one last story I want to give to inspire is, one of our engineering managers at Scale was a quality assurance coder only 6 months ago. And what is really amazing about the culture of Scale and remote task is whatever you put in, you will get out, and we recognize top performers really fast. So if you engage in this work and you really find that it suits you and you're able to work hard and help others succeed, there's a path all the way into coming to the SFHQ. And I've seen people chart the path left and right. So I'm really excited. I hope to see some more Nucamp folks charting that path as well.
We're looking forward to it as well. We'll stay in touch. We'd love to know how our graduates are doing in your team. And as you said, it's actually just the beginning, and it's go big right from the bat. 1,000 people, you want them like in the next 30 days, but then you're going to still continuing to hire. And I think you said at the beginning something about 10,000 people.
Oh yeah, I think I think likely even more than that. It's
all right.
It's sky's the limit, and so we plenty of space. If you're interested, please come on in.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much, Wyatt. Thank you, everyone, for joining and for asking all your questions. Good luck applying. If you're a graduate, and if you have any questions, please ask them in the job opening channels. We'll relay that, and we'll stay in touch with Wyatt. And if you're not, you can engage as well with us on our LinkedIn page, YouTube, and we'll make sure also to hear you and try to work with Wyatt and Scale AI to help you out. All right, take care. Have a great weekend, everyone.
Thank you again.